Today I ducked up when I accidentally tried to steal a MacBook at the airport. Obligatory TIFU didn't happen today, but back in January, my wife and I went to Orlando for my birthday. The actual trip was great, if a bit colder than we expected, but still a fantastic time. Until we got to MCO to fly home, that is. We got there with tons of time to spare, but it was packed, and security was a nightmare. We get up to the metal detectors and x-ray machines, and unpack all our crap into bins, and start the process of going through the security checkpoint. My wife goes first, and gets pulled aside for an invasive further screening, leaving me to gather our massive belongings spread out in the bins. So I grab my MacBook, and cram it in my wife's purse, her carry-on, her shoes, belt, and coat. My hands are nearly full at this point, but the machine just keeps spitting the bins out, and the people behind us are pissed at the delay, so I start fumbling to grab my bag, shoes, belt, and wallet. My 3DS and oh shit, I almost forgot my MacBook. I'm way overloaded, but the people behind don't give a damn, so I try to shuffle to the side, to wait for my wife to get done with her screening. In the process of doing this, I drop about 3/4 of the crap I had, and so I begin organizing things a bit, putting my MacBook in my backpack with my 3DS and wallet, rearranging all my wife's things so that I get it down to a manageable amount. Oh shit, I almost dropped my damned MacBook, so I decide to hold it directly in my hands until my wife can help me with our junk. Well, while I'm doing this, the woman behind me starts shrieking that her laptop is missing, that she can't find it, and it was just here before it went through the machine. She comes up to me and tries to snatch my MacBook out of my hands, but I flip it around to show her my piranha plant sticker and prove it's mine. She goes back to flip out at that sack guy working the x-ray machine, and my wife comes up, and we proceed to schlep our stuff into the food court area down the way. We grab some food at the Ruby Tuesdays, and I tell her about the woman trying to take my MacBook, which gave her a good laugh. I surf the web for a little bit, and decide to pack the MacBook away for the flight, and when I went to go put it in the computer pouch I always keep it in, there was already a MacBook there. It all clicked at once what must have happened, so I go to return it to the woman. I get back to the security station and she's pinned to the floor in handcuffs, bawling her eyes out because she was apparently getting arrested for assaulting a SAT agent. I didn't know what to do, so I sheepishly walked up to one of the cops that was handling her and said, "Oh, I think I grabbed her laptop by mistake," and handed it to him. Through her tears she bawled out that I was the thief and the cops should arrest me, not her, when one of the cops said, "Lady, he just brought this back to you. If he is a thief, he's the worst damned one I've ever seen." I didn't know what to do, so I said sorry a couple of times and the cops shooed me away, so I left and flew home. I don't honestly know if she was arrested or not, because I can't find anything about the incident online, and I have to believe that the local paper would have written about that sort of misunderstanding, but she was in handcuffs last I saw. TLDR, grabbed a second MacBook in a moment of confusion and caused a woman to flip out and assaulted SAT agent because she thought someone had stolen her laptop. Today I ducked up by slapping an Asian lady on the bus in the face with my boner. I was riding the bus home this morning after working a 12-hour night shift without much sleep before work. I did what I usually do on the ride home, which consists of alternating between passing out and waking up every 30 seconds or so. For some reason the combination of falling asleep and the vibrations from sitting over the rear wheel of the bus commissioned a rigid, throbbing, leaning tower of mushroom meat in my pants. I woke up after a middle-aged, Southeast Asian lady occupied the seat next to me, her legs awkwardly touching mine, and her breast rubbing against my arm with every pothole as we shared a seat in the confined rear corner of this stinking vessel for the disabled and vehicularly challenged. I panicked. My stop was approaching, and I was battling a trouser dragon which I could not slay. Her unintended grinding and the bumpy road certainly did not help my cause. I considered riding the bus all the way around town until my man steak returned to medium rare, but this was not an option as I had to be home to let my girlfriend in, who did not yet have a key to the apartment. So I pressed the button to signal the driver to stop, planning in detail how I would exit the bus without alerting my fellow passengers to the angle of my dangle. I would put my backpack in front of my junk, stand up, and walk out the back door. The perfect crime. Where I ducked up. As I stood up, I dropped my bag. No fear, I thought. Her satellites haven't detected my surface-to-air missile yet. I will just bend over and pick up my knapsack and carry on. So I did. I bent over, inadvertently tucking my cock rocket back behind my legs. As soon as I retrieved my backpack and stood up, I noticed she was getting up from her seat. Too late. Wrong place, wrong time, 1 inch too far. In a cruel twist of fate, the instant she arose from her seat, my beef torpedo launched from between my legs and slapped her square in the jaw. Ducking track pants allowed maximum velocity too. Nothing but jeans from now on. I was off the bus and running for my life before I had a chance to witness the look of horror that was undoubtedly pasted on her face. I'm never riding that bus again. Never. Whatever happened to sticking your hand in your pocket and holding it? Or just tuck it in your waistband? Yes, I thought every teen learns this life-saving tip. Today I ducked up by picking up a hitchhiker and then showing up to my own funeral. This happened a few years ago, and I was living in Zimbabwe at the time, and I was having a pretty bad day. I was going to see my auntie who lived about 400 kilometers away from me. If you're African, you'll understand that this was no small journey. So I got in my car and set off, and about 3 hours into the journey I came across a dude by the side of the road who was going in the same direction. So out of the goodness of my heart I said, jump in, we go to talking, and he happened to be going to exact same village as me, and he knew my auntie. Half an hour passes and we are making polite chit chat and reminiscing about old times in Zimbabwe, when all of a sudden he tell me to pull over. So I do. He runs out of the car and starts making retching noises, so I assume he's throwing up. It's dark at this point, so I can't really see much, so I go check on him. First mistake. I get out and go to his side expecting him to be there, but he's not. Then I hear someone behind me, and before I know it I'm unconscious. So I wake up a couple hours later, like now this because the sun was coming up at this point, without my car, clothes, or wallet. So I'm thinking, great, I look around and see him on some farmland wearing the GI's clothes. So I start walking in no particular direction and eventually come across a settlement. I explain to them my situation and they tell me that the nearest main road is at least a good half a day's walk from where I am, and they don't get many cars coming through this part, but they heard one last night, which might be our thief. I start walking in the direction they point me in, and after what felt like forever I come across a road. So I pitch up and start waiting. Now I know most of you are thinking, why not call someone? I had no phone with me and I don't have the best memory, so I didn't know any numbers that would come in handy. After a couple of hours a car stops and lets me hitch. I let him know the situation, and he says we're in the complete opposite direction of my intended destination, but he's willing to drop me close enough to walk the rest of the way, to which I thought, great. It takes a good 2 days to get there, and he drops me off, and I say my goodbyes to my driver. I take down his number so I can repay him later on. At this point I'm starting to recognize my surroundings. I walk for a few miles, and as I'm getting closer to my auntie's I can hear a lots of singing and what appears to be a large crowd, which I thought was strange. I'm about 100 feet from the house and I see my son, which again I thought was strange because he was meant to be in school at this time, but instead of running to me and hugging me as he normally does, he runs away screaming, to my complete bewilderment. I get to the gate and all of a sudden the large crowd, alerted by my son's scream, has stopped singing and is stood silent. My wife appears and starts to run towards me, hugging and kissing me like I've been gone for months. My auntie appears and immediately faints when she sees me. I still have no clue what's going on at this point and am exhausted, so we rush to get my auntie inside, and I see my picture on top of a large box that resembles a coffin sitting in the living room. So it turns out that the guy who robbed me and made off with my car, my wallet and all my clothes was in a car crash so bad that they couldn't identify the body, and because the only things they could use to identify him was my wallet, they assumed it was me that had died in the crash. Since there was no body of sorts, they could arrange the funeral pretty quickly, and that is what I had stumbled upon. My son still has nightmares to this day, and my wife has told me never to pick up a hitchhiker ever again. TLDR got carjacked, Robert died and family thought it was me. They arranged my funeral and I somehow managed to stumble upon my own funeral. Imagine though, this guy said he knew your aunt, then he managed to get you away from the car and left you on the road. What if he was from the future sent to save you from that car crash? What if the robber actually was OP from the future, coming to fulfill his fate and to prevent a paradox? In which case, OP actually went to his own funeral.